I think Mr. Trump has demonstrated a paranoia and insecurity, as well as a real concern about the investigation that is underway.
Former CIA Director John Brenan holding himself up as a paragon of virtue and vowing to keep up his harsh criticism of President Trump, saying he'll speak out until integrity returns to the White House.
Here to react, former deputy assistant to the president at Fox News, national security analyst Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Doctor, always good to have you here. Sounds like Dr. Brenan is going to be speaking out for a long time.
Well, until he's probably charged with being at the center of Spygate. And this is a man who has done something no other former CIA director has ever done. Nobody has attacked a sitting president the way John Brenan does, in a way that undermines the integrity of the current government. He's actually feeding in to Russian propaganda and supporting people like Vladimir Putin with what he states, which shouldn't surprise anybody, because John Brenan has actually admitted, and this is the shocking thing, that at the height of the Cold War in 1976, he voted for Gus Hall, the Communist Party candidate for American president. That's when the Soviet Union was trying to destroy America. This man has a track record which clearly is unpatriotic and un-American.
Doctor, maybe I'm naive, but I thought CIA directors of either party, you know, whether it was somebody nominated by President Bush or somebody nominated by President Carter, that they were supposed to be nonpartisan.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Ed. On his Twitter feed, it actually says under his bio, non-partisan or neutral individual. This guy's a political hack, and as the good bard Shakespeare said, the lady doth protest too much. He is making so much noise because he knows that he is at the center of Spygate. Remember that Australian ambassador? You remember how it all began, how they sent operatives overseas to talk to him? That only happens with John Brennan's approval. So the whole dossier leads back to John Brenan, and that's why he's being so loud now. So
when you say doth protest too much, do you think that John Brenan has become sort of unhinged because he's worried this investigation is turning on him?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We now know that this was an interagency operation. It included the CIA, the FBI, DNI. Clapper is trying to cover, but he's perjuring himself as well. But at the center of all of this is John Brenan, and that's why he's being so loud now. And John Brenan doesn't launch a political attack using the intelligence community against Donald Trump without President Obama's approval. So this is why the man is unhinged,
Well,
Ed.
quickly, what about the morale and the decency of the agency that he ran? I mean, to Ed's point, saying at one point he was nonpartisan or still claims to be, you've got 35,000 or more working at the FBI, thousands that work at the CIA. They don't ask which president they serve. They just serve the country. What does this do when you have people that led these places now speaking out so politically, basically putting their political opinions, their personal opinions against the president?
It does the same thing that Jim Comey has done to the FBI. One man manages to undermine the prestige of tens of thousands of others. Don't forget, not only was this man a former communist, John Brenan, when he came into the CIA, he never should have been let in with that track record. He wanted to be an operator. He wanted to be a case officer. He failed abysmally, became an analyst, and so when Obama made him the director of the CIA, he took his revenge, and he tried to make analysts run operations. It was a disaster. Thank the good Lord, Mike Pompeo took over and has saved the CIA, and now he's doing an amazing job as Secretary of State. So he's damaged the prestige, but we're getting it back.
Well, Brennan's not going anywhere.
Yeah, Dr. Gorka, we appreciate you coming in.
Good to see
you. Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Abby.
All right, here with reaction, former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, author of the bestseller The Geraldo Show, Fox News correspondent at large Geraldo Rivera, and South Carolina Republican Governor Henry McMaster is with us. Geraldo, let me start with you, because this is really interesting. If you look at the case in particular, this was a first offense, lifetime sentence for a woman who had a lot of personal problems, needed money, got involved in drugs. I actually think the case that Kim Kardashian was pushing was a very powerful one and one we really need to pay attention to.
Oh, I think there's no doubt that Kim Kardashian's appearance at the White House was totally appropriate. I mean, Sean Spicer could answer that a lot better than I, but it just seemed to me that she was really bringing attention to a very necessary issue, one the White House has now been grappling with thanks to this new legislation on sentencing reform and so forth. A lifetime sentence, no parole, no possibility of parole. She didn't murder anybody. So I really do think that Kim Kardashian's visit to the White House was absolutely appropriate. Samantha Bee, you know, the hypocrisy on the left. I mean, we should be outraged by both Roseanne Barr and Samantha Bee. And I think that, just very briefly, what we should do is let the victims of their insults tell us what to do. Valerie Jarrett has responded very graciously to Roseanne Barr. Ivanka Trump has been beyond gracious when it comes to Samantha Bee. Maybe, you know, when they grovel and they beg forgiveness, maybe we give forgiveness, Sean. I have a Christian view today.
What is your take? Go ahead.
Let me show you my shocked face, because I think in both of these circumstances, there's nothing that shocks me, because one is the idea that Jim Acosta is deciding what's an appropriate issue to be discussed at the White House. And just put the merits of the case aside, and I think Geraldo valiantly displayed what they are. But the bottom line is it's not up to the media, never mind Jim Acosta, to decide what's a valid issue to be discussed or not. It's up to the President of the United States and other elected and government officials to decide what issues are going to be addressed, the concerns the American people have. And every American has a right to decide what issues are important to them and to advocate their government to support them one way or the other. The idea, by the way, on the other piece, on Samantha Bee, look, I believe I made a lot of mistakes at the White House that I asked for forgiveness for, and I think people were very gracious in many cases.
With all due respect, you're too hard on yourself. You did not make that many mistakes.
Thank you. But my point is this. I think that when people screw up and they apologize, they should be given forgiveness. I think that, but the double standard that exists, whether it's Samantha Bee or Joanne Reed or Joy Reid, these other people, when they make a mistake, the left absolves them and doesn't, sort of excuses them and explains why what they said wasn't that bad and that there are no consequences. But I agree with Geraldo again. I mean, Ivanka's been so unbelievably graceful about this. And this isn't the first time. You remember Julia Offie, the former Politico reporter now at The Atlantic, said a very similar thing. And what was the thing then? Well, she didn't really mean it. So these disgusting and reprehensible tactics by so-called journalists and people on the left get excused and washed away every single time.
Yeah, and look, and Henry, by the way, good luck in your run for a governor down in South Carolina. I was down there recently, beautiful state, and I have a lot of friends down there. Yes. I look at this and I'm like, okay, this is now an environment. I've read everybody's apologies, and I'll give Roseanne. I mean, she's apologized again and again, and I sense that there's real sincerity here. It was a 2:45 a.m. tweet. Not a good thing. I have my suspicions. What happens? Geraldo knows a thing or two about tweeting. I know
very well, very well. No tweeting after midnight.
But what about the point? Everybody wants to silence voices they don't agree with. I have never called for the canceling of any show, the firing of any host. Bill Maher going back to politically incorrect on ABC. It was people like Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh that said, you know what? Don't fire him.
Well, Sean, these people are just, I think they've just gone crazy. President Trump is enormously popular here. If he had run today, he'd get more votes than he got when he stomped the opposition the last time. But his tweet was exactly right. He's saying what everybody in South Carolina's thinking. He's 100% right. I just don't know what's happened to these people on the left. I don't know if this hatred of the president or the hatred of what he stands for, which is what America stands for. I think something's happened to these people, and they're making fools of themselves. I think they're so deep in the tank, they don't even realize it. And they'll apologize now until the next time, and then the next time. And I think the people just had enough of it.
But, and Geraldo, this is a point that I always go back to. As much as I'd like to make everybody in America watch this show, I have to do a good show and invite them invite me into their home, if you will. And that's how you gain an audience. And I think the American people are smart. We sell them short, and we feel that we have to silence.
Well, in that regard, I just want to say, referencing something, Sean, you said at the beginning of this program this evening about the deep state coming for you. If they come for you, they're going to have to come through me, because I'm going to be there, fighting off these people. But
if I have Geraldo in my bunker, I'm safe. There's
I wonder what's happened to the level of civility. I mean, it is so low down and dirty now. It's the candidate for governor in the great state of South Carolina alluded to it. I think that there has really been the country is so divided, And the people that hate the president hate him with such vehemence, with such. Where do they get this? I mean, do they really feel this way about dictators and you are others that are really criminals?
But you know, understand, if he's successful with the economy, look at these numbers. He's successful in North Korea. He's keeping his promises. We'll become an energy independent, the biggest tax cuts. That's bad news for Democrats, Geraldo. They want to win in 2018, and for them to win, he's got to fail.
Well, I think that is so desperately melancholy that they root against their own country for partisan purposes.
Let me get Sean in for the last word.
I would just say the one thing about the Samantha Bee thing that troubles me more than anything is it was pre-taped. They thought about it, they scripted it, and they still went ahead with it. That's vastly different than making a really sort of stepping in it without thinking about it. So I really think this case was really different than a lot of the other ones.
All right, guys, good to see you. And Henry McMaster, by the way, welcome to the program. Good luck in your run down there in South Carolina.
Thank you, Sean.
We wish you the best.